All right, welcome everyone. Hello, friends, and welcome to 10 with Jen. I'm Jen O'Sullivan, a board certified naturopathic practitioner, author of more than 80 books on natural health and um, just various things. And for the past 20 years, I've had the privilege of teaching hundreds of thousands of people how to rethink wellness naturally. So, my mission is simple to help you age with strength, purpose, and hope by getting back the way God designed the body to function. Okay. That's the goal. So grab your glass of water, settle in for the next 10 minutes, and let's spend a little time together. All right. So today I want to answer one of the questions I get asked all the time. Like, Jen, why did you move to Silverado? The answer actually begins with a story I shared in episode 1. So, as you learned, my husband, Tim, almost died. For nearly 2 years, our lives revolved around hospitals, doctors, tests, unanswered questions, 911 calls, ambulance visits. There were moments when we truly didn't know if he was going to make it. And watching someone that you love slowly fade in front of your eyes changes you. So then, about a year ago, something incredible happened. On his third near death experience, I practically dragged him into the emergency doctor, and we found out that his copper was non existent. Like, literally, it was crazy. And so, for the previous 18 months, we had been using a therapy designed to elevate GHKCU, one of the body's naturally occurring copper peptides. And the problem was that his body didn't have enough copper to even make GHKCU. So, think about that for a moment. He had the GHK, but he didn't have the CU. And that tiny missing piece, copper, was preventing his body, right, from producing one of its most important regenerative peptides. So once we corrected his copper deficiency, everything began to change. Within about 2.5 to 3 months, his numbers started improving. His brain began functioning normal again. He started gaining back the weight he had lost while his body was shutting down. It was wild. He returned. And for the first time in a really long time, like Jacob and I could finally breathe. As grateful as we were, we also realized something. Our home had become a place filled with trauma. Every room held memories, and neighbors had like come into our home and watched ambulances come and go. The sound of sirens like instantly took us back to some of our darkest moments. And so our house in Aliso Viejo, while it was really beautiful, and it sat right at the entrance of some of our favorite mountain bike trails. We absolutely love that location. It was also a super busy corner. There was constant traffic. We had like constant activities and hikers and like just noise, dogs. After everything we had been through, we realized that we didn't need more noise. We needed peace. Like we needed quiet and our own rest. So here's the funny part of the story. If you know my husband, Tim, you know that he's what I call a Zillow hound. He loves looking at houses just to see what's out there. And one evening I was on a trip and work trip, and he called me and said, I found the perfect house. And then he told me where it was, Silverado. And I was like, what? I actually laughed. For years, I had said that I would never, ever, ever, ever move into the foothills of Orange County, California, like never. I really loved the cool ocean breeze that we enjoyed living so close to Laguna Beach. I actually like colder weather, and I used to joke that I really couldn't understand why anyone would willingly move somewhere hotter, and especially up in the foothills. So then Tim said something I will never forget. Let's go check out this house when you get back. Now, why I won't forget that is because he was excited, like really excited. I hadn't heard him that excited in a very long time. And after everything we'd been through, I just was like, okay. So I told him, sure, let's go check it out. Like, eyes rolling back in my head. And when I got home and we went and saw it, the moment that we pulled into the front of the home at the end of the street with no one behind the house for looked like miles, I knew he was right. It was one of those rare moments that you just know. The house wasn't just beautiful, it felt peaceful, it felt healing. It felt like exactly what we needed. It was quiet. There was trees and the canyon and the slower pace, right? It felt like we could finally exhale. And I found out later that the miles behind the house, it's 97 acres of untouched land. It's like amazing. And here's another part of the story that still amazes me. So during the 2 years while Tim was sick, we really didn't do anything with the profits from our businesses. I was so focused like on helping him survive that investing money or doing anything with it wasn't even on my radar. So looking back now, I can clearly see God's hand in that. What I thought was simply putting life on hold was actually God preparing us for something that like we couldn't see yet. So when the right house came along, which we weren't looking, the resources were already there. And so the decision was surprisingly easy. Like even our real estate agent kept commenting on how calm and confident we seemed throughout the entire process. And honestly, the truth is that like my confidence didn't come from me. And Tim was even kind of surprised by it. Like, like what? Like, are we really doing this? But it came from God. Uh, we had already learned one of life's greatest lessons. If this house was where God wanted us, He would open the door. Okay. And if it wasn't, He wouldn't. So either way, God had us. There was no fear and no striving and no panic. Like, no, there was just peace. And I wanted to sit here. I'm sitting in the backyard. It is silent. All I hear are birds chirping. And I wanted you to be able to see the background without it being super glary. So I'm sitting in front of one of our windows that's out looking out over the canyon here. So I basically, when we think about spending so much energy trying to force doors open, and God's just quietly asking us to trust Him instead. I've learned that peace isn't found in your zip code, because I definitely didn't want to move up here. But it's not found in a bigger house, and it's not found in money, right? Having more money. Peace comes from knowing that, like, whatever God, wherever He leads you, whatever He has for you, He's already there. And today, this house has become exactly what we hoped it would be. It's a place to heal, a place for me to write, a place to think, a place to rest. It's a place where we can serve others from a place of peace instead of exhaustion. It's a place to welcome people who need hope, a place to build the next season of our lives. So every morning when I look out these windows into the canyon, I'm reminded that sometimes God's greatest blessings begin with the words, I said I'd never, right? Like, I'll never do that. And He's like, yeah, right, let's go. So, this is one of those things about, when I think about what I learned over the past couple years is that the size of your peace will never exceed the size of your view of God. Okay, so let me say that again. Like the size of your peace will never ever be able to exceed the size of your view of God. So when all we could see were lab reports and ambulances and uncertainty, it was easy to become consumed by fear. um when I remember who God is, and when I really thought that through, everything changed. Not because our circumstances changed overnight, but because my perspective did. And I think that God was not surprised by Tim's illness. He wasn't surprised by the missing piece that no one seemed to know about. Like, nobody caught this. It took forever. He also wasn't surprised by the house in Silverado here. um, he's not surprised by whatever you're facing today. And, I think about how we live in a world that's constantly trying to distract us. Like every notification, every headline, every crisis competes for our attention until we just, forget how big he really is, right? So I think it's interesting, like, I feel like the devil's trying to distract us so much so that we do forget how big God really is. And the Bible reminds us, I think about Psalm 33, 8. And it says, like, let all the earth fear the Lord. Let all the inhabitants of the world stand in awe of him. And I think we've lost a little of that awe, don't you? We've made God small enough to fit inside of our problems instead of remembering that our problems fit inside God's hands. And so I want you to think this through. Stop telling your problems stop telling God how big your problems are, and start telling your problems how big your God is. Remember that, right? Stop telling God how big your problems are all the time. He knows. I want you to start telling your problems just how big your God is, right? And when we raise our view of God, our view of everything else begins to change. We begin to trust instead of fear. We begin to worship instead of worry. We begin to rest instead of panic. And that doesn't mean life suddenly becomes easy. That means we remember who is walking with us through it. So here's today's reset. I want you to spend 10 quiet minutes with God today. I want you to leave your phone in another room completely. I want you to open your Bible, pick a psalm, read one psalm, and then ask yourself this a couple questions here. Is my view of God as big as he really is? Ask yourself that question. Is my view of God as big as he really is? And then ask, am I placing my worries and my fears and my unanswered dreams into his hand, or am I striving to carry them myself? Because when your view of God grows, your faith grows, your peace grows, your hope grows. And sometimes that's the reset that your heart has needed all along. So thank you for spending these 10 minutes with me today, and a little bit longer today. If this episode has encouraged you, I'd love for you to share it with someone who needs a reminder that God is bigger than whatever they're facing. And if you're ready to begin your own wellness journey, pick up a copy of my book, Rethink Wellness. So this is in here. And what I want you to do is go to the very last section of the book. It's called Connection with God. And I want you to begin with the chapter on raising your view of God, raising our view of God, and believe that it may be, I honestly believe it may become one of the most important chapters you'll ever read. My editors and I joked that, like, oh, the last parts of this book is the best part of this book, and we kind of wanted to swap everything to the front, but it made sense for us to keep it in the back. And in the beginning of the book, I even do say that, like, if you want to start at the back, go ahead. But honestly, it's an important thing because lasting wellness begins with knowing the one who created you. Okay, I'll see you next time until our next 10 with Jen tomorrow. Be blessed, and we'll see you then. All right, bye, guys.